We're
I can
allowed-
leave.
No.
Yeah, just like last time, if you don't like this book, you're banned.
Well, no, it's Kayla doesn't like this book, so we can't ban Kayla. She doesn't hate it, but it's not her type of sci-fi.
That's okay.
I feel like I need to fall out, Kayla, and I'm really upset by this. Anyway, hi everybody.
Hello. So we are discussing A Memory Called Empire today. So I guess, do we want to introduce ourselves?
That doesn't hurt.
Okay, I'm going to nominate Angela to go first.
All right, I'm Angela. My channel's Literature Science Lions. I really like this book. I've read it twice. I've read the sequel with Judith. I am biased. Judith, go.
I am Judith, and my channel is Dead Good Book Reviews, and I have read this book 3 times. I also enjoyed this book, but I think biased in when you're talking about a book that you like, I don't know if that counts as a bad thing. That's just liking it versus disliking it. But yes, that's me.
I'm Nikki. I'm Books and Lemon Squash, and I also like this book and have read it twice. I literally finished the second time about 11 o'clock last night. So hopefully I might remember at least one character's name.
Is there a cat?
I'm Stephanie. I'm from Miss Richards Reads, and this was my first time reading this book, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yay! So important. So yeah, we have to do a non-spoiler section, which I feel like is relatively easy. I don't know. I did like a 20-minute spoiler-free review, so I feel like you can talk about this book and not be specific for a very long time.
Right. Right. So is there anything specific that's non-spoilery that you want to discuss?
Well, what about you, Stephanie? You're the person who just finished it. It's fresh.
I thought that since it was like a space opera, there'd be more space. And I'm not disappointed by that at all. But it was more like culture and language, which I actually really, really enjoyed. I thought that was really cool. So I think the world building was fantastic.
For me, it reminded me of like a space opera, like the Dune space opera, which that one's also very like you're in space for like a second, but you're mainly on a planet and you're exploring the cultures and the political drama of that planet, sort of thing.
Yeah.
This is almost like a political thriller. It just happens to be set on an alien planet. There's this throwouts to the fact that it's sort of space-y, like especially like Mahit's fear of like fire and stuff like that. Like when she mentions that, I think it's quite late on, but it's really not too spoilery to mention it, I don't think. And I was like, yes, you live on a spaceship. Fire is the devil. and like there's loads of little moments like that, which I was like, yes, that's really good sci-fi. Like it's good science, and I love good science.
Yeah, like you said, like especially with Mahet's perspective, like as she's going from she was on a station to a planet and seeing how people on a planet just use resources very differently and like have a different level of fear with certain things that are just, you know, it's like I think the idea of like having like violence with like bullets would be like unthinkable on a station, sort of thing.
Yeah, I noticed that because there was one scene where when she first got to the planet, or the planet, they were kind of wasting water in her eyes. And then for us, I wouldn't think anything of it. But for her, it's like precious droplets are being wasted. And it definitely makes you think, for sure.
We have people in the comments who have also read it twice.
I think that's really interesting. I think it's a book that, like, for me, it required reading multiple times, because I don't read a huge amount of sci-fi, and at the time when I first read this, I wasn't reading a huge amount of like adult fiction, and every time I've read it, I've been like, okay, I think I get it. And still there'll be something where I'll turn a page and be like, oh, that happened? When did I miss this? When?
Well, it's like I was talking in the Space Sirens like chat yesterday. It's like, oh, I was really confused on my second read because I somehow forgot everything after 7 months, but I was comfortable because I do remember that I was satisfied with the answers I got. So I didn't feel as stressed.
I remembered enough of it, like actually quite a lot of it, but equally it was still surprising, if that makes sense, just because like the little moments. I also thought there was more of something than there wasn't, which I'll come to in the spoilery bit. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it was just everything's so delicately done that I actually think it is like a little comparable to how Becky Chambers' books works, in terms of like it's all sort of neatly meshed together. You've got all these little moments. Obviously, it's very different in the sense of it's like a murder mystery, effectively. You know, there's a lot more violence, but it's also like I think the little quiet moments and the way the relationships works for me are quite comparable.
Mhm.
That's interesting as you say that. I mean, I've only read 2 Becky Chambers, but I wouldn't compare. My instinct is not to compare the two, I guess.
No, I think in general they're not, but it was something about the relationships that made me think it.
Yeah. I also really like the way they do their names was super cool.
Yeah, and I like how you could tell in the Texclon culture when someone was more assimilating and their name choices would be considered kind of taboo almost. Like it's supposed to be like number noun, but there are specific nouns you're supposed to use. It's not supposed to be every noun. And I can't remember the one example of like someone.
it was like
36 all-terrain vehicle.
Yeah, like you know, like
I loved that
also,
so much.
but that
And then,
happens
like,
here, right?
the
Like when
names.
people come to school here, they get an American name sometimes, and sometimes we'll hear the American name and we'll think internally, well, it's technically good, but that, you know, like I remember in college there were some people who chose names, and I'm like, that's not a bad name, but it has a connotation of a certain occupation that you don't know about, and you know what I mean? Like it was like this cultural thing.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool.
I liked the added layer to the name thing as well of then you have like the terms of endearment or the like more the nicknamey kind of thing where it's related to their name. Just for adding a bit of intimacy to relationships in a very kind of like closed off more cultural experience, I guess.
I love
wouldn't
so
cope.
much.
My face just says everything I'm thinking all the time, and I like to smile. Like I would be kicked off the planet. Sorry, no.
Well, and like it took me forever to think of how does their smile work, because I'm like, it's raising the eyebrows. Like I don't know how this. You widen the eyes. Like I couldn't even fathom how this worked.
I just kept envisioning Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory, because there's one episode where they're like, you need to smile and be friendly, and he did a smile, and Howard's like, oh my god, that's terrifying. Like that's just what I kept thinking with the raised eyebrows.
Well, in a spoiler-free way, what do you guys have as like your favorite thing about the book?
The relationship between Reed and Petal. I just loved it more this time around. Like, just so much. I think they're so wonderful, and like every little moment, there's trust and like still friendship. And I think it is just over halfway, and airing towards spoilers, but I'm going to stay off them. But there is a moment, but basically where like Mahit realizes that they have defined the boundaries of their friendship and have still managed to stay friends and stick to that despite disagreeing on certain things. And I think that was the moment I was just like, yes. I mean, this was literally last night. I think I was on a voice call with my friend Moon, and I was just being like, Moon, this book is too good. And she was like, there.
I love the themes. I think the themes and the way they carry through in the writing is probably my favorite thing. And we're coming back to kind of identity and dominating culture and so such. But I was an ancient historian, so that's my main source of sustenance is empires and how they work and so such. Yeah.
Well, and just her choice of the type of empire to focus on. I was looking at interviews, like she purposely chose this very dominating, violent, like expanding culture to focus on as like the focal point of this empire, and exploring that, devouring, like all the metaphors of devouring and being a predator. It's a very dense read, but I didn't mind it being dense because I was connecting and engaging with the denseness, which is rare for me. Like sometimes something's just dense and I'm like, why? I was here for pleasure. I am not receiving that enjoyment. And here it was like, for me, really nice. So I don't know. I was highlighting so many things. Like I think I have my Goodreads up and I have like so many notes highlighted, and I like never highlight notes. I have 96 notes. I have so many things.
Actually, I would agree with that. Like, it's a slow read for me, and I don't read much slowly. I tend to be a kind of like, oh my god, I accidentally finished a book sort of person. And I feel like this is one I could actually make notes on because I'm sort of forced to read it slowly. I think we were talking about it a little bit last night. Like, for me, it's a slow read. It's quite hard to sort of get into in some ways, but in such an enjoyable way. Like, you enjoy every second of it, even though you're like, my brain has to be on for this and it's a little bit hard work, but yay, I love it.
Yeah, it's one of those you definitely think about when you're not reading it, and then I wanted to keep reading it when I couldn't. Like, just let me finish my book, go away.
Yes, that's for sure. Let's see. Okay, I guess we should probably try and be critical. What is a critique you can talk about spoiler-free before we go spoilers?
I think for me, just because it was my first read, it kind of dragged a hair in places because it is a slow read, but it didn't really take away from my enjoyment overall. And I think on reread, the places that dragged for me probably won't, now that I know where it's going.
Yeah.
I think for me, sorry.
No, go, Judith.
For me, it is the fact that, and this is a me problem, probably more than a book problem, but that there were some quite important bits that I genuinely missed happening. And I think sometimes things just there are too many people doing too many things with too many names. And I've just lost myself a little bit. And then you kind of come back and you're like, okay, I think I know where everyone is. And just a couple of moments that necessitate taking slower. And I think it's because they were towards the end. And my typical reading style is I read very slowly at the beginning. And by the end, I'm like, haha, let us get through. I know who everyone is. And this flipped the script a bit for me on that one. So yeah, more of a me problem, but that would be my main criticism if I had to pick one.
I think I actually agree with you.
Yeah, I was about to say, even on reread, the 60 to 80% point is oddly slow. And then it goes crazy. But like, it was oddly pretty medium slow paced. And then it was real slow. And then it was like, At least that was my trajectory.
Yeah.
Well, but equally, like, I think actually it's that last 20%, like that major scene. And I'm not going to spoil again, but like, I think there was that where I was suddenly like, wait, where is everybody? Who's moving around where? Like, there was lots of people where I'm like, oh, we're learning a lot of stuff quite quickly. And it was actually making it harder for me to put everyone in their little boxes because nobody likes being in a box.
Exactly.
All right.
I'm really worried my cat is going to knock over the laptop stand. It's precarious, to say the least.
Should we go into spoilers? Because I want to talk about things.
Yes, I think we're good.
All right.
Yeah, so, Carrie, bye-bye.
Be gone.
We love you, but no.
Since it's probably like killing Mickey, do you want to talk about the pedal?
I think I forgot. I was genuinely devastated. I forgot. And last night was like,
I forgot, but I remembered right before it happened, and I was just like, I forgot.
I don't want to read this page. I don't want to read this page. Like,
I've had an audible reaction. Like, what?
I forgot that, and I forgot what the Emperor does at the end, like in the final scene.
Yeah.
I forgot about how did I forget that? It's like the pivotal. That's why I needed to reread this before the sequel, because I'm like, I apparently forgot how the Civil War resolved itself.
yeah.
And I think it's telling us to what's important about, like, what sticks with you about a book. And I think in this, it's the plot is not necessarily why you read this book. It's great and it's wonderful, but not necessarily what stays with you after reading it.
I don't know, actually. I thought the political intrigue was fucking brilliant, but like, yeah, like 12 Azalea. Oh, I'm still not ready to talk about it. But yeah, like what the Emperor does, I think, kind of like it's so important, but equally it's almost not. It's almost irrelevant to the book in so many ways, like because it happens at the end. You know, like it will massively affect what comes next.
Oh.
But yes, Bertie, I was like, they're going to walk it back. They're going to walk it. I've read it before. I know they don't walk it back. And I was like, it's fine. He's not dead.
Well, I think it's almost harder on a reread because first read, you don't know if you should trust Petal, right? Like, who do you trust on the first read? Like, Stephanie, I don't even know
Everybody.
who you could, like, lean into. Maybe Mahet.
I just kind of went with it. Like, they get betrayed. It happens.
But like on reread, I know that Three Seagrass actually is genuinely flirting with Mahet.
Yeah,
like this
genuinely the best person.
And like this is like a genuine relationship, because I do think at the beginning, kind of a minor con is like when they were all like talking around the corpse, I'm like, wait, why are you guys all on the same team? I don't quite get it. I don't understand anyone's motivations. And it worked out. No.
See, I went the other way. I was like, I'm going to trust everybody this time. It worked out really well for me.
But then it hurts, right? Because on the reread, it's like, Petal's great. Look how helpful they are. And they're just like, want adventure. And their life is so boring. They're just doing this for fun, kind of. And now they're dead. And it's just really sad.
Yeah. I think we've killed
as I giggle. Sorry. Yeah, I really love their relationship, though. And I was kind of on the fence about the ending with Mahit and Three Seagrass, but I'm happy with it.
You're gonna.
I loved it. I think I forgot that it was only right at the end. Like, I was expecting them to be together way earlier.
It's so realistic to me.
Yeah, oh no, it absolutely is. I think I liked it more for not being earlier because it didn't feel rushed, and I hate insta romance. I mean, I'm not a big fan of romance, so like, but yeah, I was just like, why aren't you kissing yet? What is wrong with you?
Well, and Judith knows more of my thoughts on this. Like, I thought it was handled really well, not just from like a natural romance occurrence, but because of all of that like internal conflict for Mahet, because she knows that Three Seagrass kind of fetishizes this kind of relationship, that she's kind of initially attracted to Mahet because she's different, because she's a foreigner, because she's a barbarian, you know, and like that's it feels weird.
The excitement, yeah,
you know, like, you know, and so I'm glad that it only got like sort of explored, because they did go through all of this together, so there is more of an emotional bond that has gradually formed, but also that Mahet didn't like stay there, that they chose their own journey going forward. So
yes, yeah, Bertie. I think that was something I did not pick up on the first time and totally did the second time, and I was like, wait, holy crap!
I learned that today. So wow.
Yeah,
I think it's also really interesting in terms of like power imbalance, because I think that's on both a minor and a macro scale, like the power imbalance is a big themes, and they're not wanting to fall into the same traps as your Scandia previous person who was there, and not wanting to do the same, following the same things, but also how much are you have similar mind stuff going on, you're the same people inside each other's heads, how much are you doomed to fall into the same traps, like all of that stuff.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think the way that the power in the relationship is handled very well.
Yeah, because I think in some ways both of them have power over the other as well. It's not just about the fact that Mahit is the ambassador, but Three Seagrass is literally her way into anything. And you know, it is her connection to everybody, her way to read her own mail. You know, like it is actually quite balanced towards each other, like at different points, which I found really interesting. I think it was really well played out. It wasn't ever just one way in the way it was with 19. I can't pronounce
I think we
that.
can just agree we're not going to pronounce things as the same.
Yeah.
I know what
I
you
don't
mean.
even, I think is her name a type of flower that's actually real?
Yeah,
even?
I think so.
I don't even know.
I think so. I think it is.
What does the flower look like? Is it white? It would make sense if it was white, right? Because of all the clothing.
Hold on.
These are the type of
I
things I
Google
don't look up, but I think about a tiny bit.
Okay. Google says it's an axe. Do you know what that's
That makes more sense.
Whoa.
I have to say, I think one of my favorite bits of the entire book as a whole, and the bit that like best encapsulates it for me, is the bit where she's talking about the post, and she's like, "It is ludicrous that I have to take my digital message, put it on a stick, seal the stick with wax, it goes off in a box to somebody else, and like it's complete nonsense and not a waste of time." And I love it. Like, yeah. Oh, it's just the
That's
perfect
just
thing.
my vibe. Like, yeah.
Oh, I have a quote for that love thing that I think kind of encapsulates why I really like how they did it. So this is after, I'm pretty sure this was like after they were like making out for a bit or something like that. Or I might have it a little wrong, but it's basically, if you were one of us, I would want you just the same. And Mahet wanted to simultaneously to climb back inside her mouth and shove her out of her lap. She wasn't Tex Kalonli. She hardly knew anymore, except that she wasn't Tex Kalonli and wouldn't be no matter how many lovely, oh, I can't say that word, Ascaritim climbed into her arms, tear-stained, wanting to be held after sacrificing nearly everything she was for Mahet's sake. And she just goes, "I'm glad you did," because she just thought it was sweet, even though it's so complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, there's so many words in this book as well, like a scratum. Like, I was like, I'm not actually sure what this means. And it was only halfway through when you're like, oh, it's a university student thing, that I was like, wait, hold on, what? How does that go into?
A scratum is like a level at the information place, right? Like it's
but yeah, and then I was like, well, everything is getting confused. So but I love that, and I love that it's sort of, you know, the glossary and the pronunciation thing at the end. Always love that sort of thing.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I still can't pronounce like half the words, but it's helpful.
Yeah. Can we talk poetry?
We can.
Yeah, because I am not a poetry fan, and I love that this is how this almost, and it's fun. I want to use the word barbaric, like culture, like in terms of how they present the external universe, is just like, they're just like, oh yeah, but we value culture and we think of Station as a barbarian. So I'm like, really? And you know, everything is done in flowery prose, and I was just like, I love this. I love that you're not going down like the typical like bloodthirsty Roman route or anything like that. As much as there's elements of it in there, it's all very unexpected. And I just was like, also, how do you live like that? I could not cope. I would die.
No, I think I thought it was such a weird, I don't know if juxtaposition is the right word, but like they have this emotional way of communicating, a very intimate form. At least that's how I think of poetry. And they're not allowed to smile. And they're kind of like a bloodthirsty empire. Because like you said, like when I read it, it's like, you know, by our standards on our earth in 2021, a lot of their actions, a lot of their rituals, the whole like blood sharing and just like the whole like you could just kill yourself at a temple and it's like good luck for someone, like that feels ancient. That doesn't feel futuristic. It feels kind of more primal. So I'm sure it was intentional and I really liked it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it just kind of like the culture is played out with the poetry to make it like that. Definitely. Sorry, Stephanie.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I love that they used a poem to herald ads.
Yes.
Like, I love this.
And then people are singing it in the streets, and they're like, "Oh yeah, bring on a revolution." We've
Right?
written a poem.
I literally think of Do You Hear the People Sing from like Les Mis.
Yes.
Are we reading that? Is that what's happened?
Do you know what? I actually had that in my head, and I want to blame Stephanie because of like Hamgate ages ago, which is a whole thing for people watching, but basically there was a lot of tweets that like text of that between our chat, and every time I get that in my head, I always think of Stephanie now.
You're
So I
welcome.
just had it in my head. Yeah.
But that is so cool. Like that's the pivotal turning point, kind of, right? When they're all trapped
Yeah.
with coffee, and like this is from that point on, everything just goes crazy, and it starts with a poem. Like,
Yeah.
I love that so much.
and then that poem gets called back because the emperor uses it in their last speech. And it's,
Oh, that was so emotional. I don't think I was expecting it to be. Like he's in what, 2 scenes?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was strangely attached to him. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
what is this going on? Why do I want you to not die? Stop it.
that's a good point. I don't know enough
Yes.
about East Asian culture, but I believe you.
I did wonder about that, actually. Again, I don't think I know enough, but I had sort of like, oh, is this influence somehow? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, she did say, what was it, in the beginning?
Someone forgot about Hamgate.
My mother. Come on.
I've told everyone I know about Hamgate. It's one of my favorite
Me too.
stories now.
It's amazing. It's such a good story.
Okay, so now for people who are watching who don't know, we have to do like a 1-minute Hamgate summary. Okay, Stephanie, go.
Okay, my company was giving us hams for Christmas, and the company that sent them out made a mistake. So the people whose last name started with M and before got 2, and the people like me whose last name started after M got none. And then there was a waiting period of weeks and weeks, and it was like, your ham is on the way. And I started sending Walmart at dawn, do you hear the people's names? And it finally arrived after Christmas.
Was it a good ham?
It was a good ham.
Okay.
But the memes are what made it. I'm not going to lie. It's all about those memes.
It was the progression of like some people have ham and some people don't have hams. Some people have 2 hams and some people still have no ham.
And I like the way that you were really polite, but you were also kind of like, that's my ham, dude. Oh, so good. Anyway, I hope
There's
if you
nothing
did
to
not
do
know
with
about
this book.
Hamgate, you are also enjoying this.
I just figure if anyone ever does watch this later, they don't know what Hamgate is. They just needed to have some background.
Context,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Mom. We had so much fun with the ham joke. I'm not even going to lie.
Oh,
So a little back to the book, something else I really liked at the end, how intentional the work is. Like it's just very obvious that a lot of thought went into like every sentence and paragraph, but even down to a lot of the world building. And it's not like flashy world building, right? Like this isn't like a Brandon Sanderson, but like the fact that Mahet is taller than everyone because she grew up on a station, so there's less
Yes.
influence of gravity. Like, like that's so cool.
I wasn't sure if it was like too much to do with that, although I like that she's thinking that, or if it was actually like a species difference, because there is obviously some sort of stuff, but I couldn't tell how different they were. Like, because they both refer to themselves as humans, but they are so culturally very, very different and think of themselves as very different. I thought that was quite good, actually, because it sort of left you questioning it.
I think they're the same species because we do
I
have
think they must be.
stationers who come to it and can have kids. And the definition of same species is you can have children that can procreate. Now, are they genetically exactly the same? Like, obviously not. I think it's probably you would see like on Ancestry, like, you know, someone could be like, you're 50% stationer and like 40% text clone. Like, you know, I'm sure it's something like that where you could definitely see genetic markers.
Yeah.
But I don't think they've evolutionarily diverged. And it's, if anything, like we haven't even mentioned this, like how have we not talked about Imagilines yet? But if anything, like the stationers have like sort of given themselves some evolution with that, but it's not like in their genetics, right? Like that's just like a physical implant,
Mm-hmm.
which like
How have we not talked about the thing that is basically key to the entire book?
talk about plot to the Imagilines.
Yeah.
Those are so cool.
It's superb world building purely in the case of like, how does this culture work? You have limited numbers of people on a spaceship. How do you then have, you know, how does anything function? aha, a solution that neatly plays into, oh, yes.
Yeah, like that transfer of knowledge. Like you don't have the time or the ability to train everyone from the ground up each time you need. It's really cool. And then how you get to then have that thematicness of like, what is it to be an individual? We have these two very cultural definitions. And I think it's interesting that the book makes us sympathetic towards the Imagiline stance, even though, like, if you asked me what makes me myself, it is my memory. So if you start combining me with another person's memory, I'm a different person by my own internal definition. But the book doesn't lead you there, you know?
No, I would not want one at all. They freak me out, but I think they're fantastic and I love them because, like, I mean, I love the fact that as well they match for personality type, they match for the sort of thing you're going to do. So Mahit is still training to be an ambassador. Sorry, we've got a lily cat tail, and like, you know, she still has to do a lot of that learning, but she doesn't have to do every single bit. And I think that's the bit, is like, if you were becoming an engineer or a pilot, which, you know, the example she gives early on, like, you're still doing a lot of those training things. You are still obviously interested. It's not something that is in any way forced upon anybody, which I really like. And I think it was really interesting watching her early integration with Xander and then later the older Xander, and just being like, oh my god, there's two of him in there. How do you cope with that? And also the fact that he can sort of take over her body, although she's sort of definitely kind of got that mostly on lockdown. I just freaked me the hell out, but I love it.
And
yeah,
the
like what
combination.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to be like that comment we have on the screen. Like, yeah, the whole matching of the endocrine system, which, you know, we don't think about it a lot. But, you know, a lot of people, when you talk scientifically, what makes you your personality? Like the fact that this book's minor thesis is kind of like, it's your hormonal system. It's how you respond to things in your life. You know, like, are you overly emotional in this state? Are you more calm in this state? Like, how are you emotionally reacting to your world is very tied into personality compatibility. Which, again, not sure if like I 100% buy into that thesis, but it's an interesting idea that's like put forth. And also, I got over it, but I did dislike that this book gave me my favorite trope of mental communication and took it away in like 2 chapters.
I brought it back for the last 2.
Yeah, but I was stressed with Mahit the whole time. I'm like, but wait, I liked that dude.
Right? I was so mad.
Yeah, but I liked that it wasn't simple for her, and actually, like, I thought I remembered more about why it had gone wrong and why she'd maybe been sabotaged and stuff like that. And that just wasn't there the second time. I must have made it up. Like, or maybe the arc was different. Who knows? But yeah, I liked that we sort of get to see her struggle in the way that if Xander had still been there, we would have had serious issues.
Yeah.
So,
I really love the stationer mindset and this kind of like collaboration of the science and the sacredness of it. So they understand like this is technology and it has to function this way, and we also need to make sure that we do all of the training for this and the mental health afterwards and all of this stuff. But it's also, there's the whole idea of like you are carrying the memories of the people who've come before you, and it's very it's a sacred thing, not in terms of like necessarily ritual, but in terms of how you hold it. But then to have the betrayal of that from the person responsible for it feels so huge. But also when Mahit's done something wrong and it goes in and kind of like makes it worse, knowing full well this isn't how you're meant to do anything. That was the thing that I remembered. I remembered back alley brain surgery, but I couldn't remember why. I was like, when does that happen and why does that happen? But yeah, I really like that kind of like blend of science and culture.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it was kind of terrifying because she was kind of awake for some of that, even if she couldn't feel it or didn't register.
Certainly awake in her head.
Yeah,
Like,
I could not.
ago. Yeah.
Oh, Mahit has way more courage than I do. Like this was the worst week you could ever have as your first week on a job. We can all agree. Like this is.
I accidentally helped overthrow the emperor.
Well, and I think that's something this book does super well, though, because on both reads, I was always like, wait. Why does this ambassador of this tiny station matter this much? And it definitely does. Like, I mean, Mahet also is like, wait, why am I in the middle of all this? I just want to answer the mail and like do the thing.
Yeah.
Like, why? What is all of the politics around me? Why do people care about me? What's going on? And I think the book does such a good job of convincing you. It's like, oh, it is this technology. This is what the predecessor's done before. And like the social unrest isn't necessarily like Mahet's fault, but like Mahet's involved because that social unrest was happening. So then their predecessor, like it works.
Yeah,
there
so
is
well.
a tiny bit of convenience that there is this powder keg moment, like things are about to explode. Like that's the slightly convenient part, but for the most part, it lines up really well and makes sense. And
I don't think it is that convenient actually, because the only reason she's there is because they killed Xander, and they killed Xander because the president.
yeah, but I meant more like the civil unrest has nothing to do with the stationers. Like the stationers had no influence.
No, but it's to do with the president, and that's then to do with Xander, and then that's to do with Mahout. So
yeah,
it's
but
like, I think it's sort of
like, what if she
works
showed up
through,
3
but yeah.
months later instead of that exact time? You know, like nothing I think
would have
she did in the
been settled.
plot made it happen, other than she happened to be at a bomb situation, which can't remember if that's was because Mahet was at that bar or if it was because someone else was there. I can't remember.
I think they were going after her because they admit later that they did with the flower, but I'm not sure. It's ever clear with the bomb.
yeah. Oh, that was scary. I didn't like
that flower was terrifying.
She's just like, what else did you touch? Nothing. No. Stop touching things.
Yeah. But I like also, because I think I liked 1990 more this time, and actually I like that we actually see her kind of be a little bit suspect and things like that. And as much as I liked her more, I liked her because she's morally grey. You know, she's generally trying to do the right thing and stuff like that, but she also does some bad stuff, and we see that twice. And I think that's going to be really interesting for book 2. Please don't tell me.
Judith and I have stayed completely in book 1 territory here.
Yeah.
We've been
No,
very
I know. Yeah. You guys are going to get so many texts when I'm reading it.
Well, you know what we should do, and it won't be like an official Space Sirens book club, but when you and Stephanie have finished it, we should do like let's catch up.
Yeah. I love that idea.
Because in this case, only 2 of you have to read it, and I just feel like herding that many cats might be possible. Because Judith and I have already done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems
And then,
reasonable.
weren't you guys saying in the chat, I don't remember if it was your Patreon or not, but this one is more like theme heavy, and then Desolation is more plot driven or it has more plot than this one.
Yeah, I think it still has the thematic bones of this book, but what I say, instead of comparing plot pacing, is that this is more political intrigue, murder mystery, and the other one has more like military sci-fi. Like it just has a different sci-fi genre focus,
Gotcha.
which sometimes lends itself to more plot, right? You know, you're in space. So, I don't know. I think that's a good spoiler-free way of telling you how it changes. Well, also, like, there are things brought up in this book that we haven't talked about that are just like ominous things and black holes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, at the time I read it, because I read it as an e-arc from NetGalley, and I much as I probably knew it was a series, because it like had moments of having a series name attached to it. It is very much a one-shot book. You could easily read it and feel like completely satisfied. And even when I finished yesterday, I was like, how do you follow that up? And I'm very excited to find out.
Yeah, that is one thing I really liked about it. You could easily read it by itself.
Yeah.
And not have to wait however long for the next book. Like, I need to know what happens.
I would still read it within the next 4 months, or else you're going to forget everything.
That is
and I think the book does an okay job of catching you up, but it still kind of was nice going in sort of fresh. It was pleasant. I
mean, and now you're saying that makes me think, actually, you say 4 months, I hear 4 hours, because I have already forgotten more than 4 characters' names.
I'm trying to be reasonable, because I know like it's booktube and blogging, so we all have like so many books. So I'm like, I don't know.
I've not got any demands at the moment. I could. It's tempting.
It's good. It's very good.
I'll get back to you in 3 weeks when I've not started him.
Right. We're just gonna get a random message from Nikki after like a week of silence. Like, ah!
Yeah.
No, I really like A Memory Called Empire, but I think that one's more of like a literary experience. Like I'm really like sinking into it, and there are plot moments that do give me emotion, especially at the end of the book. But A Desolation Called Peace was more of like an enjoyable reading experience. Like it was more traditional for me. Like it's still slower. Like Judith and I took a week to read it together, I think, 5 or 6 days, which for Judith, you know, is like an eternity. So.
Yeah, I was about to say.
It's because I had to stop every chapter or so to just send Andrea at least a 6-minute voice note of all of my thoughts and opinions.
There were a lot of thoughts and opinions because, like I said, it still has the thematic bones, but like it's a different, like I said, subgenre of sci-fi, so it has different pacing attached.
Yeah, I mean, as you can tell when we read Mask of Mirrors, like my version of voice notes when I'm reading a book is like, oh, I accidentally read half a book, I better send a note. So I am not the best at this, although I am looking forward to it because I do think this is one I could potentially do a little bit more with, and I am actually a little sad I didn't like sticky note it as I went through.
You can always do it on your third reread. As Judith can tell you, it's still good then. What's also exciting, I don't know if you guys know this, is like, although it's like a duology with the first two, there might still be like novellas and other things in the world.
Yeah.
Like, and which makes sense because this world is, like we've talked about, is so
it's really vast, yeah.
So you really can, like, I mean, we could go to a different planet we just haven't talked about yet because they weren't at the center of this civil war, and we can, maybe, you know, we could be there because one of our characters goes there, or we could be there with just new characters.
I'd like to be part of a world that is either about to be taken over by the Empire or has been, and there's people who are really unhappy about it and like planning rebellion and stuff like that. That would be fun.
Yeah, I don't know. Because
I don't know that I'd want to be part of the Empire.
This Empire, like, there's also the obsession with flowers. Like, so many flowers in this book, which someone was mentioning in one of the comment sections of my videos about the flowers and what they represent. It's like, you know, I never thought of it, but it's like, I don't even remember what they said, but like, I don't know, the flowers, like an empire, there's just like a symbolic connection there, but it's like, there's just so much symbolism. And I'm just like,
there is.
I
think it's like,
sorry, Nikki, you go.
Mine was just a quick one to say, well, actually, it's even like learning that Adzi is an axe, and you're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's so much meaning in everything that you didn't even look at.
I was gonna say, it's very kind of like when you study Shakespeare, because that was all I did for like 7 years of English at school. But where you can sit there and be like, on the surface level, this is a great sentence. Oh, I have delved into the imagery. Oh, I have delved another layer deeper. And at a certain point, you're like, it's the whole thing of like, I believe that this is all symbolic of this, and it could be complete nonsense, but also it could be what it's symbolic of. Yes, it's a good time.
Well, I do feel a lot of this is very purposeful, but yeah, there's definitely a rabbit hole there.
It's one of those things where I can totally tell if someone doesn't have a good time. I get it. Like, I get if you didn't have an enjoyable experience, but like, I just had such a fun time. Because I think, like Stephanie said, like, it was a book I read pretty slow on my first read, too. And it was beginning of the pandemic. So I didn't have much going on. I wasn't allowed to go into work. But I was not sitting down to read it for hours at a time. I would, like, read a chapter or two. Because they're long chapters, right? They're, like, 20, 40 pages of just, like, words. And then I'd put it down and go do whatever else I was doing. And be like, man, I want to read it. Like, it was one of those things I kept thinking constantly. And it was before I buddy read with people. So I was just, like, in my own thoughts. Existing. And then I finished it and I wanted to make a review and I'm like, no, I'm too baby. I don't know how to review this book. It was more like I'd done book reviews at the time, but I was just like, I don't even know how to talk about this book. Ooh, I'm a little claustrophobic about space, so I like planets with atmospheres.
I'm the same, but also I am terrible at social anything. So I would quite happily be in the Empire if I could be like born and raised, already know all the rules. If I was just dropped there, I'd be like, hello.
I'd be the same as Judith.
Like,
I agree, but equally, I think I did astronomy at uni, so like I'm dying to be on a space station, and like I just want to, but equally, no, they are death machines. I would die, and I would accidentally blow up the entire ship. So I'm not willing to take that risk.
What
Also,
do
we
we
don't
say,
see
though?
a lot of stationer life. Like it's something that I'm hoping we get more of. Okay, we get more of. Okay, good.
Well, what I think is interesting, because this is in Memory Called Empire. I'm not talking about Desolation Called Peace, but when Mahet's feeling stress, they miss their pods back home. They miss being in an enclosed space. And like I really like that. And I like that it kind of goes with my thought process where like I'm a little claustrophobic. I might not like space. And like Mahet like misses the claustrophobia of their little pod.
Yeah.
What did Evie say? I was just saying hi, liking the video and leaving. So Evie needed to read it.
Yeah, I think that's really sweet. Thank you.
You need to read it.
She would really like it.
I think she would too.
I think she would. I mean, I think. Well, no, this isn't true because Kayla's read Malazan and she doesn't like this, which I'm still like, because I feel like that's also a very dense book that's only rewarding if you're like hyper engaging with the material. So, I don't know.
I think if you go in expecting to read it at the pace, if you're a very fast reader, like how I was the first time I read this, I went in going like, this is going to be like every other book I read and I'm going to whiz through it. I really didn't enjoy that reading experience. And I think if somebody had said to me, you'll need to read this one very slowly, it's deceptively long, but not physically long, I think I would have probably had a better time that first time reading it. And I know that because I did the second time. So yeah,
That's
expectation management.
At the beginning, I was like, I've been listening to this for 2 hours and I've only read 40 pages. Like, why is this taking so long? But the story is really good, so it kept me going. But
yeah,
don't expect to fly through
it. Yeah, definitely. And I think kind of my arc of it was proper messed up. It was one of those ones where the formatting is awful, which actually almost in some ways helped because I kept having to reread bits to be like, wait, where's the start of that sentence? And stuff like that. Like normally I hate that and it puts me off, but I think actually in some ways I was already going slowly on this one, so it was sort of fine.
Ooh, another thing I really liked, but this is something I always like in almost every fantasy sci-fi thing, is like the beginning of the chapters where you have like a station document and a text colony document, and it's sometimes related to the chapter and sometimes it didn't, but it was like these, I don't know, I like scavenger hunting in my world building, and that's how it felt. It's like, look, I have this piece of paper. What does this mean?
Yeah.
I know some people who really, really hate those. I like them, but I'm aware for some people they are a waste of time.
But
I only read about half of them this time.
But you can skip them. That's okay.
Yeah, I think that's because I was like, I just want to get this book finished. I'm going to the lives tomorrow. I'm going to struggle.
Yeah. I read them, but I'm one of those people that would bother me if it was my first time reading it and I did not read it. Because then that would be the one time I'd miss a key point. And it would be...
I definitely read them all the first time. And I do normally like them. It's just more sort of, I'm lazy.
I can't remember if she has or hasn't, but if not, I need Justine to read this. Like, I need her to have read it.
She was audiobooking it,
Yeah.
but I don't know how far she's gotten. I know she's not been reading super fast this much, but that's fine.
Like, come on now. You need this. You need to have read this.
It's definitely one of those books where if like people have read certain sci-fi and have liked it, I'm like, there is a strong chance you would like it. Like if people have read Dune and liked it, I do think, like, I mean, that's if anything, more thematically philosophic book thing. I mean, that one's a little more heavy-handed. I feel like here, like, she definitely has like a thesis and themes, but you're also allowed, because we have two opposing views, to like make your own interpretation, sort of thing. Or like, I mean, Justine likes Hyperion, which is a very dense sci-fi, thematically crazy book. More so the first one than the sequel. I need to reread that one because I read that one in like my baby sci-fi days, kind of like how Judith read Memory Called Empire in her baby sci-fi days. And like, there are no regrets, but there are definitely things I know I missed.
I'm still in my baby sci-fi days.
I don't think you ever leave it. I feel like I keep saying that I'm in, like, I've been reading sci-fi books for so long, but I still feel like I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Like, I feel
think there's
very
lots of
confident
different
about
types,
fantasy,
which is always
but,
good.
But this is also why I was shocked that Kayla liked Nine Fox Gambit, because that's a very confusing sci-fi, but it worked out well, because I think that has, like, better character stuff, maybe. Like this one, I think the second book has better character stuff for me. I won't say why, but I just think the second book has better character things. In this book, the character things were better on reread, but could be very flat on a first read, especially if you didn't have an audiobook, if that makes sense. Like, because you really have to like see a lot of the playfulness in your head. It's not necessarily on the page. And if you don't see that,
I would love to listen to it on audio, actually, if
The
only to learn
audio-
how to say something.
The audio is really good. I flip back and forth.
oh, how do we say Mahet's name? Are we even saying it remotely right? Is it Desmar or Desmare? Is it not even that beginning
You
sound?
asked me, and now I can't remember. I think it's Mahit.
Okay, Mahit.
And then I could not catch her last name. I kept forgetting to pay attention.
How dare you?
I know.
You have not prepared to be the host of this live show.
Yeah, well,
Banned from all those other
my
hosting.
baby full space too.
You can't ban her. We only get 4 hours.
Yeah.
Listen, I can do what I want. I don't have any power. I can just say anything. Like, I have no power.
Like, and Angela's kicked out.
It's
If I
okay. I
say
deserved it.
You have no authority here, Jackie Weaver. Has that crossed the pond as a meme?
Who knows?
Yeah. I don't
I'll
think it
send
has.
you a link. I'll send you.
Yeah.
A link.
It's good.
Like, all right. Well, any final thoughts on this book?
Everyone should read it.
Nothing
Yes.
Empire touches remains itself.
I feel
You
like
said that so deadpan. It was really creepy.
It's said like 3 times in the book by like different people.
Yeah.
like you just entered
That's such a good memory.
Well, I think it's just another example of a thing that touches on many things because it's about an individual, it's about a culture, it's about, it's multifaceted because like the idea that the emperor is not his own person anymore, right?
Yeah.
Because they have been so entwined in the empire, but it's also anything that gets invaded no longer stays whatever it was before. So I just like the book.
Yeah. No, I did, and it was one of those things I picked up because I was doing FF February, and I got the second one. I was like, I'm going to reread it, and I haven't got a copy. I'll buy a copy, and I've just enjoyed it so much. And then I was like, oh, it accidentally works out with this, which worked lovely. And yeah, I think kind of if you are into sci-fi at all, I would totally give this a chance. I think it is, it can feel a little bit like a slog, but it's a very rewarding one. And at no point did I ever regret being like, oh God, I've got to read this or anything like that. It was just like, okay, I'm just going to make sure my brain's a little bit more with it than normal.
Yeah, no, that ending makes it so worth it. That ending is emotional and climactic and like
Oh, so good.
And like, we're talking like people might not have read this yet, and we've written the spoiler section. There's people who have spoiled the book for themselves completely, but they should still read it.
some people like to be spoiled because then
Very
they're
true.
comfortable, right?
Yeah.
Like my stepdad's the person who reads what happens in the TV show episode online before watching it that night. And I'm like, what's the point?
Who would do such a thing?
Monster.
I don't like to be scared by things. I like to know who lives.
Oh, baby.
Oh my god.
That's funny.
Well, what was your final star rating?
Oh,
Ooh.
4.5 to 5.
Something. I can't remember what I gave it last time, and I literally only finished it last night, so I haven't actually gone and rated it again yet. But I
No,
feel
I
like
had-
it's a 4.5. Like, yeah, probably 4.5.
This one's a 4, and the Desolation's like a 4.5.
Ooh.
But like I'm way harsher on sci-fi ratings than I am fantasy. I don't know why. And I think it's because I get a lot from sci-fi that I don't get from fantasy, but I don't always get that paired with as much enjoyment as I get from fantasy, if that makes sense. Like I think there are stuff that could have been cut, or we could have solved a problem in a quicker, more interesting way in the 60% mark. Like, Because I think that part is when we're trying to go get the brain surgery and stuff's happening, and the stuff after the brain surgery is cool, but like up to the brain surgery, there's like just a lot of like, we're obviously being put on a tour to go see more of the city than we've seen, to go to this place, and now we're just getting introduced to this new character for like a minute. Like, I think we could have solved that problem in a more interesting way, and maybe we could have cut out 50 pages or something. Like, if I was thinking about how to make it the 4.5 or 5 star, I think it's definitely in like that.
Yeah.
But equally, like you say that, it's only 450 odd pages long. And it feels longer. Like, I was looking at it last night, I was like, I do not actually have as many pages left to go as I think I do.
I've been getting more picky with age of how long a book is.
That's fair.
Or how short it is. I definitely sometimes it's like, there are books I read where I'm like, oh, this is too short. You like Black Sun. I'm like, I wanted 200 more pages. You know, like, it depends on what I think is missing or where I think for myself I've been having like issues, and it's subjective, and I'm not an editor and I don't help people write books.
And it just depends on the book. Because some people think Oathbringer should be like 300 pages shorter. And I'm just like, I agree.
I nearly always say a book should be shorter.
So,
and
I think I've learned my sweet spot for a Stormlight Archive book specifically, since no one here is for this, but it's like about 1,150 pages. That's the sweet spot for a Stormlight Archive.
That's a long sweet spot.
You
so worth
that,
it,
but half of the books out in that series are like 1,300 pages. So,
and they read really fast. Like,
they're gonna have to.
Well, they kind of are pacing. Well, it's a Sanderson pacing. So if you haven't read Sanderson, a Sanderson pacing is really slow burn until it like kicks into high gear. It's very imbalanced, but he's trained me to like it. Like, I've been reading him for 15 years, so I'm now trained to be okay with it.
I've been indoctrinated. It's okay. We can get you some help.
But what happens is he kind of plots a whole trilogy of an arc into one book. So one book is essentially 5 parts, but it feels like the arc of a trilogy. So when you read a Stormlight, you're really reading 3 books, and it feels like that. So
on my list, after Robin Hobb,
I was going to say, I'm not sure this is the recommendation you want it to be for me.
Well, no, it's not meant to be you should read it. Like, I have a very balanced Stormlight Archive review on my channel where I know it's not for everyone. Like, I know deep down, and I really don't want people to read it who are going to hate it. I just don't.
That's fair. I think that's always a good way.
Well, I think the audiobooks are extremely good. So, like, for some people who don't want to, like, physically read something that long, they're really good audio. So I know Judith might audio them if you're doing it after your Robin Hobb. So, because I know you've been Robin Hobb audioing.
I need to do that.
Which Robin Hobb are you on? She's so far.
I am on. I've just finished the first one in Fits in the Fall, which is Fool's Assassin. So I need to start the second one. I'm nearly there. I'm getting there.
Yeah.
It's been.
I've not read any of them.
It's been true.
I've got the very first one on audio, I think. I really need to read it.
Yeah.
I think what happens with those audio, and Judith can correct me, is like you don't get the same narrator for the whole Realm of the Elderlings.
Oh, that's
Sometimes you don't even get the same narrator for one series. Everyone pronounces everything differently. It's fine.
Bye, Bertie. We're probably going to leave soon.
Yeah, we should probably start.
to book chat.
I know. All of our audience is like, okay, bye.
This is fair. I honestly have to go too because I'm supposed to like go be like I have to go see my boyfriend's parents, so we're supposed to leave in an hour or so. So I need to eat lunch because they won't feed me till like 6. And if I'm hungry, I'm miserable. And we always watch the Food Network right before dinner, which is
torture.
Why am I the way I am?
So Gilded Ones, yes.
Yes. The Gilded Ones.
It's on
Wait,
Kindle.
has anyone else read it yet?
I know Amber has, but Amber's not here.
It's there.
I really, really enjoyed it. So,
nice.
Spoiler.
I've heard a whole range of reviews, so I have no clue what I'm going to get from it, and especially since it's young adult, which is not my typical age range, but we will see.
Yeah,
I'm optimistic. I want a fast-paced read, so I'm just hoping it's that. I'm like hoping, please. I won't hold it against it if that's not what it is, but part of why I pick up young adult sometimes is because I want it to be fast.
That's why I read middle grade. So I did the same thing, but aged up. Like middle grade, it's like, oh, I just want something I'm going to whiz through and be happy at the end of.
Yeah. We haven't planned the live stream yet, so keep an eye on the Twitter, which is, I think, in the description.
Our link tree is in the description, which has the links to our Twitter and our Discord.
Yay!
Exciting.
Yeah,
So
come
if
join
you
us on
want-
Discord. We're fun.
Yeah, I'll be posting chats about the Gilded Ones in there because we always have buddy reads. I haven't started it yet. I'm hoping to after I finish a different book.
Actually, yeah, I'm not sure if I put one on there for it. I will do that in a second.
Okay.
Because
Now
I'm
you
playing on
can
Discord. Great. See everyone next